have two scripture readings this morning about two people who we remember from their stories who they are. We remember them as who they are because of what they did and not necessarily what they owned or what they said or what they did for a living. You know, it is September 11th, the 10th anniversary of September 11th, 2001. And today, people, especially if you're watching television, where we're remembering people for being heroes, for being loving members of families, mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, sons and daughters and partners. We don't remember which floor or firm they worked on in the World Trade Center. That's not important. It's who they were as a person, right? We don't remember necessarily if they were in the Army, in the Pentagon, or just a secretary or a clerk. That's not important. It's who they were in our lives. It's who the people were in the plane that went down in Pennsylvania as brothers and loved ones. This week we said goodbye to a few people of our own loved ones. Marcus Hewitt had his memorial service this past Friday. Someone gone way too soon in life, my age. This Wednesday we'll memorialize Camilla Weber, way too early in life. Braxton, much too early. But we remember them for the love that they gave us, right? That's what we remember. For the way they touched our lives and our hearts. I got my choking up done at 9 o'clock. I lost three of my friends were killed in Washington, D.C. I was living there September 11th. Actually, my neighbor, David Charlotte, was the co-pilot of the plane that went into the Pentagon. But we remember them with love because they really brought joy to our lives. Our story about Joseph this morning is a story about a young man that turns into a full-grown man. And remember the full story, I hope. He was the one with the many-colored coat, it says, but the father's favorite. Although he was the youngest, he was the favored one, so all his older brothers hated him, sold him into slavery, into Egypt, where he spent most of his life in jail in Egypt, in a foreign land with no friends and family around him anymore. People that he didn't even know, didn't speak the language. Of course, then he becomes Pharaoh's favored, because he can interpret a dream. And when we read this morning, he's actually in a position of great power in Egypt now. Second in command, some people say. And this big famine comes in Israel, the land of Canaan. Of course, Egypt has stored up food, so all the Israelites now come down to Egypt to ask for help and food. And who do they go to? Of course, it's Joseph that welcomes them, that receives them. And his brothers, the same ones that stole him into slavery, are asking now for help. He could have hated them, held the resentment all his life for ruining, basically, his life. But he doesn't. He forgives them. And they weep together. And that's what we remember about Joseph. Not the bitterness he must have felt for years and years and years against his family, his brothers that sold him into slavery. But how we remember him is for his forgiving nature, his loving nature. Likewise, in our gospel reading this morning, we're told of this young man who comes to Jesus and asks, how do I live a good life, a godly life? And Jesus says, well, follow all the commandments. And he says, which ones? And Jesus names a few. And this man says, well, I've done all that. Those long lists we keep talking about that people were supposed to follow in ancient Israel. Well, I think I'm doing that. What more should I be doing? Jesus says, well, go sell everything you have, give away all your possessions, and come follow me. And then this poor man goes away grieving, saying, I can't do that because I have many possessions. Now, the point of this story, I really don't think, is for us to all go sell our possessions or give everything you have into that little gold plate that comes around. The point is, these stories for the longest time weren't written down. They were told orally, correct? So when names were said, they stuck with you. So when someone was identified with a name, you remembered it. Theodore, or Mary, or Joseph. You remembered the person that way because they were named. Well, this man isn't named in this story. How was he identified? The rich young man, the man who had many possessions. We remember him because of what he thought was most important to him, his possessions. And that's how he'll be remembered forever, with no personal name, but what he did in life was not for other people, but for him. Selfish young man, you could say. Our guest this morning, Justin Ryan, if you don't know him, if you weren't here for the concert last night, it really was a blessing last night. What anyone who was here received more blessings than we were expecting. Justin has an incredible story. We'll talk to him a little bit afterwards, please, in the fellowship hall. Was kicked out of his house as a teenager for being gay. How hard that must have been, lose family. Made his way to Nashville, Tennessee, and was sort of adopted into the country music and gospel music scene there. Knows lots of famous people, has recorded with lots of famous people, and has been offered huge recording contracts if he wouldn't be true to who he is. And so he turned those down. He's not the rich young man of the gospel story. He's more of the Joseph of the Old Testament story that forgives people for what they've done to him and has devoted his entire life to helping spread the word of Christ's gospel in the world. I'm very pleased to ask him to come back up.